What victim ended up being the bad guy instead? I just listened to a podcast about a girl, Mackenzie Sharilla. Basically, she, her boyfriend, and another friend were involved in a crash that killed the boyfriend and the friend. She was a driver, and she survived. At first, it seemed like maybe there was some fault in the car, or that she simply lost control of the vehicle. But as the investigation went on, they realized she planned the crash and ran into that wall on purpose. It was a crazy listen. I don't remember the details of the case, and can't find it on a search, but hey, erase the details I do remember. There was a guy who had an argument with an Uber/taxi driver when his wife complained about him. They were basically harassing each other back and forth. Then, the Uber driver ended up dead in that man's apartment. He claimed self-defense, saying the guy broke in and was trying to attack him and his wife. The guy was being praised as a home defender and for protecting his family. Turns out he sent a note to the driver to come to his house so they can work things out. When the driver got there, the guy invited him in and shot him. The whole thing was staged and everyone believed it and praised him for killing another person, basically stroking his ego. Then it came out as premeditated and everyone was shocked. Corey Harris. He's a guy who went viral earlier this year for showing up at a Zoom court hearing driving while on suspended license. He spent 2 days in jail. Then it was reported that Harris should have had his license reinstated 2 years prior. Harris's attorney sets up interviews with local TV stations stating his innocence. Good Morning America does a piece on Harris and lectures the viewer to not judge a book by its cover. Harris goes back to court. The judge does his homework and discovers Harris has never had a license in Michigan or any other state, yet has been to Secretary of State office multiple times to renew his ID. The opportunity was there for him to get a license. He chose not to. He goes viral again, but because he lied and embarrassed so many people along the way. Joe Glenowitz, Illinois cop that staged a suicide to look like he was murdered by assailants. Police and community rallied behind his widow for weeks. Search for the assailants. Funds were collected and donated, tributes were made. Turns out he committed suicide because he'd been embezzling money from a police program and he was about to be found out. In 1864, a train pulled into London carrying a bloodied, unconscious man, Franz Muller. Police were alerted, and when the man came to Muller told them as they were riding, 2 men approached him and tried to rob him. However, Mr. Muller fought back, was shot, and then left behind as the robbers jumped off the train. What actually happened was Franz Muller attacked a Mr. Thomas Briggs, a 69-year-old banker, and robbed him of his gold chain and pocket watch. Later in the day, Mr. Briggs would be found unconscious lying on the tracks because Muller shot him and threw Briggs off the train. Briggs would soon pass away from his injuries. Police were super suspicious, and then a pawn shop owner came forward identifying Muller as selling him Briggs' gold chain. London police issued a warrant, however Muller had already fled the hospital and boarded a sail ship for New York. Scotland Yard inspectors took a steamship to New York, beating Muller by weeks. They and an entire crowd of people were waiting at the docks when Muller arrived. And that's the story of the first murder on a train. There's a cool book about it Mr. Briggs had. Balloon Boy Hoax. Panicky parents called police, claimed their young son was missing and had likely been carried aloft by a home-built helium balloon, which peaked at 7,000 feet. Witnesses claimed something had fallen from it while it was ascending. When balloon eventually came down, boy wasn't in it. Child was later found hiding in the attic. Whole thing was revealed as a publicity stunt when Child was asked by Wolf Blitzer why he was hiding. Said to his dad, "You guys said we did it for the show." Dad, failed actor and comedian, pleaded guilty to attempting to influence a public servant, was sentenced to 90 days and a $36,000 fine. Mom got 20 days to be served on weekends. Both were later pardoned by Colorado's idiot governor, Jared Polis. Helena Taylor when she was replaced on Bayonetta 3. She was the original voice actress for Bayonetta in the first 2 games. About 2 years ago, she came out with an angry statement that she had been offered what sounded like a rather low amount of money for the 3rd game, then replaced by Jennifer Hale. The entire vibe was that it was an intentional lowball to get rid of her. She insisted that fans should boycott the game. You saw the response immediately on Reddit. People wanted to jump to her defense and criticize Platinum Games. Slowly, the rest of the story began to come out. She was apparently demanding a ridiculous fee, plus royalties. She had lied, or at the very least deliberately misrepresented the deal previously. She increasingly came off as a little unhinged and vindictive, with an inflated sense that she was responsible for the success of the games and irreplaceable. For several days, it seemed like a new detail was coming out every day that kept making her look worse and worse. It was particularly interesting to see this happen in such a short period of time, to watch the public opinion shift as more information was revealed with each subsequent day. It really showed the importance of getting all the facts, hearing from multiple sides, and not immediately falling for rage-bait internet drama and fan culture. The Roxanne Pallet Punchgate incident on Celebrity Big Brother. She accused another housemate, Ryan Thomas, of punching her and spent the next couple of days convincing the other participants that this occurred and generally turning the house against him. Don't get me wrong, it was immediately evident to the audience watching at home that she was a lying POS. But with the housemates, they initially believed her and confronted Ryan and made his time at the house generally unpleasant. All the while, Ryan was in an isolated environment, not knowing what his family / the general public were thinking back home. It was actually awful that the producers let it play off for so long. Anywho, next eviction vote comes and IRC, the housemates could hear the general public outside chanting Ryan's name and jeering Roxanne. You could see the penny drop for all of the other housemates. Roxanne soon left of her own accord in disgrace and tried to play the victim card, until it turned out that she had pulled this crap on multiple occasions in private settings with colleagues, etc. Her career is now absolutely well and truly in the toilet. Oh, and Ryan ending up winning the competition. Honestly, watch a video on it. Not usually a fan of crap reality TV, but it honestly was like some sort of cruel social experiment that needed to be shut down, but wasn't. Not really a bad guy, but all my sympathy evaporated for that guy that lost half his face to cancer. They showed horrific pictures of his face decaying and then losing half of it and having to have a skin graft from his arse. Near the end of the article, they dropped the line he refused conventional medicine, and I just thought, dumbass. Richard Jewell was a security guard who found a bomb in Olympic Park in Atlanta during the 1996 Games. He immediately cleared the area and undoubtedly saved many lives. One person, Alice Hawthorne, was killed and hundreds were injured. He was a hero. Then the FBI got the idea that he had set the bomb himself in order to become that hero. The poor man was hounded for weeks by the police, FBI, and the media, although he was never charged. He passed a polygraph, and eventually, he was cleared of the crime. The FBI formally apologized and did Attorney General Janet Reno. The real bomber was Eric Rudolph, who eluded capture till 2003. In 2005, he pleaded guilty to the Centennial Park bombing and other attacks on an abortion clinic and a lesbian nightclub, as part of a plea bargain to avoid the death penalty. Jewell eventually married and moved to a farm. On each anniversary of the bombing until his illness and eventual death, he privately placed a rose at the Centennial Olympic Park scene where spectator Alice Hawthorne died. Anna Ayala, aka Wendy's Chili Girl, bought some chili from Wendy's. She was startled to find a finger in her chili cup. Long story short, she tried to sue Wendy's obviously, because Wendy's was selling human chili to people. Though the lawsuit didn't go through, Wendy's was losing lots of money, about $2 million. The police tried investigating the Wendy's she was in, and they couldn't find any evidence of any human tissue or flesh or even fingers in the chili station. They investigated the employees, and all the fingers were intact. The finger looked to be cooked at the time, and they found an inconsistency. The finger wasn't cooked up to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, which Wendy's usually cooks their chili up to. They arrested her immediately, and her husband as well. After that, they revealed that she put her finger in her chili to set up an extortion. Her husband got the finger from a colleague of his who had an industrial accident. She was sentenced to 9 years in jail, while her husband 12 years. Anna got pardoned for 4 years because of good behavior. When I first joined Reddit, I briefly looked at that community and read a post on there with a ton of comments. I wanted to know what the posters' answers were, but when I clicked on their profile, they had not responded to anyone asking them questions. It was like they'd made the post then vanished. From what I understand, this is a common site. And in my opinion, if someone makes a post and then doesn't answer when people ask questions, the post should be removed because I see this in other communities all the time. People make posts that require engagement, and then they don't say anything. It's really annoying, and I've started calling it out when I see it. I learned about the case because Shahan Davari, a Survivor 48 contestant and college communication teacher, was one of the people victimized by her. He was 15 and she was 20 when they dated. It seems like Shahan has really bounced back and developed a good life, but I have no doubt there's some trauma there. Maybe not so much a case of playing the victim here, but you also reminded me of Balloon Boy. Haven't thought about that in a while, but yet didn't a family fake their son getting carried away on a lawn chair attached to helium balloons? They pretended he went missing, but he was hiding in the basement. It was a big Mylar flying saucer looking thing. Pilots chasing it couldn't tell if there was a kid in it or not. No one knew it was empty until it landed, and a deputy punctured it with a shovel. I remember when Chicago was being considered to host the Olympics. I read a very detailed article about how CPD/FBI was going hard on security and anti-terrorism. That article basically said you couldn't go anywhere publicly in downtown Chicago without ending up on a camera in some way. So when they started investigating and couldn't find any video evidence, I knew he was full of shit. I remember this case, and what really struck me was the killer's family asking the judge for a possibility of parole, and him saying something like, "There will still be birthdays and Christmases for Brittany. Jaina and her family won't get that." That really shook my young self. So senseless for no reason. Was she the one who said a big black man stole her car and kids? If so, I remember the investigator saying in an interview on Forensic Files that he asked if the man tried to sexually assault her, and she laughed and said, "Oh no, nothing like that." And he commented that it was a weird and inappropriate reaction. Similar in the UK, when Nicola Bulley mysteriously vanished on a dog walk, and armchair detectives jumped on her husband, accusing him of killing her. She was found right where experts thought she should be if the death was not suspicious, and all evidence pointed to her falling in a river. People moved on when they realized there wasn't a conspiracy. I remember watching that at the time. It was insane. Their rules were we can't tell people in the house about the outside world. But the other contestants were just wondering what was going on. Why hadn't they removed Ryan? And so on. In the end, I think the main Big Brother voice had to say something in code like, "We take these things seriously and investigate fully, and we haven't removed Ryan." And let it hang there. I seem to recall the people who asked saying, "Okay," as it seemed to dawn on them something was going on. And that whole case is very messy. The thing that bothers me the most about it is the police using the mother's visa status as a threat in order to get a confession. The family still deny it was a hoax, and practically the only evidence proving it was a hoax was the fact a sleep-deprived child said, "You said we did it for the show on live TV." I vaguely remember a case of a missing girl who snuck out at night and got into a car with friends and was never seen again. There was video surveillance of her getting into the car, and the plate is visible. It was years before police decided to check the registration of the car she was last seen alive in. Turned out she was murdered, and the people in the car were responsible. This case resulted in the Campbell Inquiry, which made over 100 recommendations to police for handling large, complex multi-jurisdictional cases. All the recommendations were adopted and set in motion the creation of the major case management system now used by nearly all police departments in Ontario. I was in my early 20s when I saw that press conference. I didn't commit to Smith lying. I just had a feeling. Said as much to my girlfriend at the time. I don't know what it is, but something is off about her. Was vilified by her and her mother. I don't remember the exact words, but basically, you'll never be a mother. You have no idea what kind of emotions that woman is going through and holding back just to be able to talk about it. I didn't necessarily back down, but I was pretty meek about it. It's just a feeling I have, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, that opened the floodgates. No woman would ever do something like that to her children. You'll never understand. I got bashed pretty good. I remember feeling like shit for even thinking about something off with Smith. About a week and a half later, I had to have a long talk with myself about standing my ground and trusting my instincts on a lot of things. Nope, none of that. I just wanted it to be over with ASAP, so I didn't want to sue her or anything. Not like I would have got anything anyway, as she was so unstable that she couldn't hold down a job. I just wanted her out of my life. Thankfully, she has been for several years now. Every now and then I will receive an email from her using a new email address. I read them, then block the address. I never respond, which is what she wants. Thanks. And to answer your question, I'm a competitive marksman. I have tens of thousands of dollars invested in them. It's my main hobby. I grew up with them all around me, as my dad was a hunter. Well, he still is a hunter, actually. From a very young age, I was taught gun safety and responsibility, and have always viewed them as tools instead of killing machines. They have almost always been an integral part of my life. I've been into shooting sports for like 25 years now, but have never even shot at another living thing. I'm an animal lover and very much a pacifist. Yes, and considering her attorney, who is renowned for securing acquittals, even for those who are blatantly guilty, it was truly shocking. When the initial suspicions about her involvement began to emerge, she appeared in interviews with her husband, insisting that everyone else was at fault. The doctors, those around her children, etc., rather than taking any responsibility herself. People always jump the gun on that case. People have no idea that the evidence presented in court didn't match the evidence in real life. They had the dimensions of the balloon wrong. They had the wrong weight of the balloon, plus the dad had actual proof that several people lied during the court case. Yeah, this is what makes it so messed up. The lady did check out the bike and was in the right. They were kids who used some discounted fare thing for poor people and were able to do something like 40-minute rides at a time for free. So they would lock the bikes back in a charging dock to avoid being charged, then take them out again after waiting a period of time. In their minds, this is how the system works, and the bike is theirs as long as they stay in view of it. However, that's not really how the system is designed, and that's why the nurse was able to check the bike out and why they stopped her from taking it. Not at all. Pretty widespread, actually. Just look up the discourse on problematic parent. Pretty much every kid who grew up in a dysfunctional family has memories of fixating on one problematic parent and thinking of the other as a co-traveler in misery, an uncontested victim. Their view of who the problematic parent really was tends to change as they progress into adulthood. Many of their attachment issues come not from the parent they cut out of their minds and lives, but from the parent they latched onto. Trashy magazines before that. He'd have this whole shtick that it was all one big happy family. IRC, he, his wife, and their kids, plus older kid from an earlier relationship, lived in the house, and his girlfriend and their kids were in a caravan outside. There'd always be a big photo of him, both women and all the kids together. It is the major problem with the premise of AITA. People aren't asking if they are the asshole, but if they are right. You could be in the right and still an asshole about it. This is the most crucial part and is often boiled down to the part when they're being an asshole till we argued about it. Like they will go into excruciating detail about everything that the other person did, but when it gets to their asshole behavior, they say, I got angry. But the question is, did the other person feel remorse and apologize while you berated them? Because then you were still being an asshole, even if they were one first. As someone who has worked in high-end customer service, I can confirm that a righteous asshole is still an asshole. It is how your behavior towards other people that makes you an asshole. When I think about the cops solving cases like this, I still kind of picture hard-working detectives from a TV show uncovering every piece of evidence, etc. While in reality, it's just a cop going, I wonder why the mom obviously doesn't care about her child when the cameras are gone. Reality is a lot dumber. Internet Historian has a great video about this. The treatment the father got from the police was awful. The entire case was based on a polygraph and interrogation of him, basically in the middle of a diabetic episode, having had no sleep or insulin for 2 days. The mother spoke poor English, but was interviewed with no interpreter and threatened with deportation. I think the guy is just a very eccentric man who lost track of his kid and accidentally caused a panic, not a purposefully malicious attention seeker. He's been on multiple reality TV shows, and his episode of Wife Swap was insane and showed some of his manipulative behavior. I guarantee it was all faked and not an accident. Plus, there is no way a kid would survive being in an enclosed mylar balloon filled with helium. They'd suffocate. So they would have had to known he was put in there purposely if they did fill it up and launch it. A friend of mine was hit by a drunk driver. He was speeding so fast the collision literally scooped her car up and flipped it upside down, smashing in the passenger side. Luckily, she was the only one in the car. The asshole fled the scene, but the accident tore off his front bumper with his license plate on it. Easiest solve in the world, right? Yeah. She had to daily call the police for weeks before just to get her off their back. They finally did the hard work of typing his license plate into the computer to get his identity. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.